So, imagine for a second that you are sitting across the table from someone at this really nice restaurant.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah. Dim lighting, great food, sipping a coffee. It's a first date.
Sounds lovely.
Right. The conversation is flowing. There is a definite spark. You are laughing. And then you lean in, look them deeply in the eyes and say, "So what kind of floral arrangements do you want at our wedding? And should we do a joint checking account?"
Oh boy. Total silence. Check, please. Immediate exit.
Exactly.
Wow.
It is completely ridiculous. I mean, you wouldn't go on a first date, experience an hour of good chemistry, and immediately ask for a hand in marriage.
No, of course not. That breaks, every fundamental rule of human interaction.
Because we understand that intimacy requires an incubation period. But here is the wild part.
Aye.
We do this exact same thing all the time in our professional lives.
Oh, for sure. We absolutely do.
We walk into a new job, step onto a new team, and we somehow expect instantaneous, unbreakable trust on day one. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are taking a really fascinating look at some recent insights from Simon Sinek to unpack the absolute mechanics of trust. We're going to explore why trust feels so elusive and how it is actually built over time.
And critically, why everything we think we know about workplace vulnerability might be completely backwards.
Yes, exactly. Because we seem to operate under this delusion that a job title, or simply occupying the same physical office space, somehow functions as a substitute for human connection.
Right. People just assume trust is embedded in the employment contract. Like you sign the papers and boom, trust is established.
This is wild.
It is. The reality, as the source material points out so clearly, is that the dance we do to build friendship and trust in our personal lives, it's biologically and psychologically identical to the process at work.
It takes time.
It takes time. Sometimes a relatively short dance, sometimes a really long one. But there's no single magical decision you can make where suddenly everybody loves and trusts you implicitly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because my instinct as a human living in a highly optimized, fast-paced world is that there have to be an accelerator.
Well, we all want the shortcut.
To me, building trust is kind of like trying to water a houseplant. You can't just dump an entire gallon of water on it on day one, stare at it, and scream, "Bloom!"
No, if you do that, you just drown the roots.
Right. It requires a daily, measured practice of watering. But I look at corporate culture and I see companies constantly trying to find the shortcut.
Oh, they love a shortcut.
They send teams on expensive retreats to do trust falls in the woods, or they host mandatory happy hours. Does any of that forced proximity actually, hack the timeline of trust?
What's fascinating here is how unequivocally the source shuts down the idea of a shortcut. And it really comes down to individual psychological baselines.
What do you mean by baselines?
Well, people on your exact same team will come along and build trust at entirely different speeds. You literally can't fast track past a person's lived experience.
Right, because everyone has a different history.
Exactly. Consider the behavioral science behind this. Someone might have spent the last 5 years in a highly toxic, hyper-competitive workplace where showing any kind of weakness resulted in professional sabotage.
So their threat detection system is just in overdrive.
It's completely in overdrive. Their guard is incredibly high. Conversely, the person sitting right next to them might have spent the last 5 years under a fantastic, supportive manager.
Right, so their baseline for extending trust is completely different.
Exactly. A weekend of trust falls isn't going to reprogram years of neurological conditioning about whether an environment is actually safe.
Which means the mandate to just trust each other is really fighting against basic human survival instincts. We assess environments based on our past trauma, not the company's current itinerary.
That is a great way to put it. Sinek actually brings in an analogy that captures the physiological reality of this process perfectly.
Oh, what is it?
He says building trust is exactly like working out to get in shape. If you want to achieve full body fitness, you can't just do one single exercise.
Right, you can't just do bicep curls exclusively and expect your cardiovascular health to improve.
You'd look ridiculous for
Yeah.
one. But yeah, you have to do chest, arms, legs, core work. It requires a holistic regimen.
Okay, but I can already hear the skeptical listener asking the same question every new gym goer asks the personal trainer. Like, where do I start? What is the single most important exercise to get maximum results in minimum time?
And Sinek's answer to where do I start strips away all the overthinking. He just says, it doesn't matter, just pick one and go.
Wait, really? Just pick one?
Yeah, because you are going to have to do all of it eventually. The order of operations matters far less than the consistency of the effort.
That makes a lot of sense.
Building trust is a multifaceted behavioral workout routine. You have to demonstrate reliability, you have to show honesty, you have to project competence, and you have to extend empathy.
So you have to exercise all of those different muscles over a sustained period.
Precisely. You can't just skip leg day
Yeah.
and expect to be fully fit.
So if we view building trust as a holistic workout routine, my assumption is that the heaviest lifting has to start at the top. Like, the organizational structure dictates the culture.
Absolutely.
The source material points directly to leadership modeling as the foundational exercise. But I see a lot of leaders who prefer to dictate the culture rather than actually participate in it.
Oh, yeah. They want the benefits of a trusting team without breaking a sweat themselves.
Right. So why doesn't that work?
The source uses a very grounding comparison to explain why dictating culture fails. Think about children and parents. A child learns how to navigate the world by observing their parents' actions, not by memorizing their lectures.
Do as I say, not as I do, which never works.
Never works. Teams follow their bosses in the exact same way. It is a deeply ingrained evolutionary mirroring behavior.
Interesting. So it's biological.
Very much so. In ancient tribal structures, survival depended on mimicking the successful behaviors of the tribal leader. We really haven't evolved past that. We still look to the person holding the power to figure out what is actually rewarded in our environment.
Let me push back on that tribal analogy for a second.
That's true. Go ahead.
If a boss is a complete tyrant, if they lie, yell, scream, and act like they possess all the answers, wouldn't the team actively resent that behavior?
Well, yeah, they probably do resent it.
So why would they mirror something that makes them completely miserable?
Because resentment and survival are not mutually exclusive. I mean, the team might hate the behavior, but their brains are registering a very specific data point.
Which is what?
The person acting this way holds the power, controls the resources, and dictates my paycheck. Sinek observes that in an environment led by a tyrant, you will inevitably end up with a team of people yelling, screaming, and acting like they know everything.
Wow. Because they are constantly jockeying to be right.
Exactly. The leader has clearly demonstrated that admitting fault is a vulnerability that gets punished, while aggressive arrogance gets rewarded. The leader sets the weather, and the team just dresses for it.
The leader sets the weather, and the team just dresses for it. I love that. But because companies realize this aggressive culture kills innovation, they try to artificially engineer trust, right?
Right, they try to fix it with a memo.
Yeah. They send out a company-wide email announcing a new era of psychological safety. And stripped of the corporate jargon, psychological safety just means a shared belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, or mistakes.
Which sounds great on paper.
But Sinek argues that a leader simply saying, hey, tell me if you make a mistake, we have psychological safety here, completely backfires. Why are the words so hollow?
It comes down to how human beings process cognitive dissonance. From an evolutionary standpoint, our brains are wired for threat detection.
The amygdala, right.
Yes, the amygdala. It processes threats, and it registers physical cues and behavioral patterns milliseconds before the prefrontal cortex actually processes the language.
Oh, wow. So your brain knows it's a trap before you even finish reading the sentence.
Basically, yeah. So if a boss sends an email saying, it's safe to fail, but their jaw is constantly clenched, they micromanage every project, and they publicly chastised someone last week for a minor typo.
The team's threat detection system completely overrides the memo.
Exactly. We are remarkably attuned to spotting inconsistencies between what people say and what they do. Teams mirror behavior, not corporate communications.
So the action has to precede the belief. You simply can't mandate a feeling.
You really can't. Sinek's finding is that the only action that actually bridges that gap is the leader taking the risk first.
The leader has to go first.
Yes. The leader must be the one to explicitly demonstrate the safety they are preaching. They have to sit in a meeting and say, I don't know the answer to your question, or I made a terrible call on that last project and I need your help to fix it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the idea of a boss openly admitting a failure strikes at the core of a massive corporate phobia.
Oh, it is terrifying for people.
Admitting you don't know is the scariest thing you can do in a competitive hierarchy. It requires engaging with a concept that has a lot of heavy, complicated baggage right now, vulnerability.
The term is heavily loaded and, frankly, widely misunderstood in professional settings. Sinek points out that people are terrified to say, I need help, because they automatically conflate the word vulnerable with the word weakness.
Because the assumption is that if you expose a gap in your knowledge, you are handing your competitors a weapon to use against you.
Right, and that management will perceive you as fundamentally incapable.
I have to play devil's advocate here. We live in a culture of constant layoffs and cutthroat promotions. If I walk into a high-stakes meeting with my superiors or my board of directors and say, I have no clue what I'm doing, I feel like I'm painting a massive target on my back.
I hear that a lot. It feels super risky.
Doesn't admitting incompetence just get you fired? How does the source reconcile this with the very real danger of appearing inadequate?
By drawing a razor-sharp distinction between the two concepts. Admitting weakness or being vulnerable and actually being weak are not the same operational states.
Okay, so what is the actual difference?
The difference lies entirely in the presence of confidence. Sinek provides a brilliant contrast to illustrate this. He asks us to imagine someone confronting a problem they don't know how to solve.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If that person says, oh my God, I'm so nervous, I'm completely useless at this, I don't even know how to begin, this whole thing is going to fall apart.
Well, that is panic. That is someone crumbling under the weight of the situation.
It is absolute panic. And from a neurological standpoint, panic is infectious. When you project that kind of anxiety, you trigger the threat response in everyone around you.
You destroy their confidence in the project and in you.
Precisely. That is being weak. But Sinek says, imagine taking those exact same underlying facts. The reality that you are nervous and the reality that you lack the knowledge to proceed and owning them completely.
How does that sound in practice?
You stand there and say, listen, I have no clue what is going on with this new software. I am incredibly nervous about this deadline. And unless somebody in this room helps me understand this, this is not going to go well.
Wow, so the magic is actually in the tone.
It really is.
Because the underlying deficit of knowledge is identical in both scenarios. The difference is between crumbling under the pressure and confidently calling for backup.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, confident vulnerability is a demonstration of high situational awareness.
That makes so much sense.
Owning a gap in your knowledge with absolute confidence actually inspires trust because it signals competence in judgment. Think about who you trust more in an emergency. Do you trust the person who is clearly drowning but wildly flailing and insisting they are fine? Or do you trust the person who calmly assesses the situation and says, I am out of my depth. Throw me a life preserver.
I mean, you obviously trust the second person's judgment because they are tethered to reality. They aren't letting their ego override their survival instincts.
Right. When you confidently state your limitations, you are looking at the situation objectively. You realize you need the collective intelligence of the team, and you are inviting collaboration.
You are utilizing vulnerability as a strategic tool of strength to solve a problem rather than just, like, waving a white flag of surrender.
That is exactly it.
That completely inverts the whole fake it till you make it culture. Faking it actually damages trust because everyone can sense the dissonance.
Oh, they smell it from a mile away.
Whereas confidently admitting you are lost builds trust because it establishes a baseline of undeniable honesty. Let's trace the domino effect of this. So, the leader takes the plunge. They utilize confident vulnerability and say, I made a mistake, I need help. What is the immediate impact on the ecosystem of that team?
The ecosystem experiences a paradigm shift. Because we mirror our leaders, when the leader makes it demonstrably safe to be a flawed human being, the team begins to test those waters themselves.
They see it working, so they try it.
Exactly. In short order, Sinek notes, people will start to take the risk to admit their own faults.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Do we just wait for the leader to go first, everyone follows suit, and suddenly we have a utopian workplace where everyone is holding hands?
If only it were that easy. This raises an important question, and it brings us to the most fragile part of the entire behavioral loop.
There's always a catch. What stops the momentum?
Well, getting someone to be vulnerable is only half the battle. The momentum lives or dies based entirely on how those risks are received by the listener.
Ah, right.
The crucial final puzzle piece is that we have to affirm the risks others take.
Because there is a massive asymmetry to trust, isn't there? I mean, it takes months of that slow, full-body workout to build it up, but it feels like it can be destroyed in a single conversation.
It absolutely can.
Yeah.
And it's driven by the negativity bias in human psychology. We remember threats with far more clarity than we remember safety, because remembering threats is what kept our ancestors alive.
Right, getting eaten by a lion sticks in your memory a bit more than a nice sunny day.
Exactly. So if a team member finally gathers the courage to walk into your office and say, I made a major mistake on the quarterly report, and your immediate reaction is to sigh heavily, roll your eyes and say, what did you do now? How could you let this happen?
The trust resets to zero instantly.
Instantly. You've just validated every anxiety they had about coming forward. You proved that vulnerability equals punishment.
You've initiated a massive withdrawal from the trust bank.
Yes, and Sinek is very clear on how we must react to seal this loop. When someone takes the risk to expose a failure, you have to suppress the instinct to panic or reprimand.
Even if the mistake is bad.
Even then, you must affirm the risk by saying, bring it on, I got you. What do you need from me to fix this?
Bring it on, I gotcha. You are literally touching them when they fall.
And this mechanism extends far beyond just operational work tasks. Sinek provides a really powerful example of a team member coming to a manager and saying, I'm really struggling at home right now. My personal life is falling apart.
That is incredibly vulnerable.
It is. And in that moment, your response cannot be to pivot the conversation to how this will impact the quarterly goals. The only appropriate response to affirm that level of vulnerability is, it's okay, don't worry about it.
We will carry the load on the work stuff this week. You focus on home.
Precisely. By doing that, you aren't just sending an email about psychological safety. You are providing undeniable lived proof that the safety actually exists.
Wow. When you catch someone in a moment of free fall, it reinforces the entire behavioral cycle.
It does. The threat detection system calms down. They will trust you deeply. They will work harder for you when their capacity returns. And crucially, they will model that exact same empathy and support for their coworkers.
It creates a self-sustaining feedback loop of actual safety. But I imagine it requires immense discipline from the listener to hold that space.
It takes practice. It goes right back to the workout analogy. It is a muscle you have to build.
This entire framework completely dismantles the superficial ways we usually approach team building. Let's pull all these threads together for you, the listener, because the mechanics here are incredibly actionable.
Definitely.
First, we have to accept the physiological reality trust is a slow, full-body workout. It requires consistent reps across reliability, empathy, and competence. You cannot hack the timeline with a weekend retreat.
No shortcuts. Second, the heavy lifting starts with leadership modeling. Human beings are wired to mirror the survival tactics of those in power, which means action must precede belief.
Memos don't change culture. Observed behavior does.
Exactly. Third, we have to redefine our relationship with vulnerability. It is not synonymous with weakness.
The critical differentiator is confidence. Owning your gaps and failures with a calm, objective tone demonstrates high situational awareness and invites collaboration.
And finally, all of this is permanently cemented by affirming the risks others take. When someone exposes a flaw or a failure, you have to catch them. You have to prove the environment is safe by saying, I gotcha.
Which leaves me with a final thought for you to ponder as we wrap up today. If resilient, unbreakable trust is actually built through this slow, deliberate process of confidently admitting we need help, how might our modern obsession with always appearing perfectly competent actually be the biggest barrier to our own success?
That is a great question.
If we spend our entire careers hiding our humanity, burying our mistakes, and projecting a flawless image just to look professional, are we accidentally starving our relationships of the friction and repair they require to survive?
It's definitely something to think about.
Something to chew on for sure. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take this behavioral science, step into your next meeting or your next relationship, and start putting in the reps. Don't wait for the memo. Go first. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much for watching this video.